Hey everyone, it's me, Sammy. Peace be with all the good people out there. I hope you're doing well. So we have completed the discussion, which revolved around the article, "The Historical Orbit of Eritrea's Agony" by Dr. Alam Sagad Abbay. It was definitely an interesting and thought-provoking journey for myself and probably many of you out there. Now we are going to transition to another text. This text I was actually intending on doing before I got to Dr. Alam Sagad's text, but it so happened that I got permission to use it after I got permission to use Dr. Alam Sagad's text, which is actually, I think it's a good thing, because now we can actually go into the depths of the ocean that we swam through or swam in, and we can also thoroughly examine the subject at hand. So and ask and answer the question, what is Eritrea anyway? What is Eritrea? I would like to know more about Eritrea. Can you tell me more? Is there anything else that can be said about Eritrea? What is the reason people fought for 30 years? All these questions, many questions may arise, and there are many questions that exist, whether they're asked or not. So I have the pleasure of being able to use a text written by a legend, a living legend of the great Eritrean revolution, Mr. WoldeYesus Ammar, who has given me permission to use his book, Eritrea, Root Causes of War and Refugees, which goes over in an objectively goes over the Eritrean story from the beginning of Eritrea, meaning the beginning of Eritrea as a nation, until its until 1992 at the very latest. The book was published in 1992. We will talk about many things, a lot of which are covered in the preface. And so I'm going to let the preface do the talking. I am only introducing the text. You can find this text online. You can read it in PDF format. If you want to read it if you want to have it on hand, you can print the pages out as I have, and you can learn. Now, I encourage every single person who's from Eritrea, who has Eritrean origins and Ethiopian origins, and everyone from the whole world, but with an emphasis on Eritreans and Ethiopians, to read this book. Because this book, it's, I think, about 165 pages, including the title page, and this book is a masterpiece, and it's a thorough examination of the revolution, objectively. So it's unbiased, it's informative, it's beneficial. It will help those of you who are in the diaspora, who don't know much about Eritrea, understand Eritrea. In any case, so let's begin. Before anything, I begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. I praise and I glorify him as he ought to be praised and glorified. So, yes, I had the pleasure of getting permission from Mr. WoldeYesus Ammar. He said, yes, no problem. Before anything, I want to mention that the book mentions in the beginning, in memory of Michael Gaber, a teacher of Eritrean nationhood. Michael Gaber was he was an educator. He was part of the revolution, another pioneer. He was a good friend of Mr. WoldeYesus. He was actually a teacher of my uncles and aunt in Sudan, because there was a, I don't know if it was supported by the UN, there was a school there in Sudan for refugees, I believe it was, and it was run by the ELF, the Eritrean Liberation Front, to which Michael Gaber belonged, and I believe WoldeYesus as well. WoldeYesus Ammar also belonged to it, and they were students, so they know him as well. So they'll tell me, they didn't tell me much about him other than, just, that he was the teacher, and, just describing how he looked and the way that he, and things, and how knowledgeable he was. So they have, good things to say about him. Well, Michael Gaber was killed, he was killed in a car accident. A family member of mine said that it was Isaias who killed him. Meaning he may have died in a car accident, but it was Isaias who was behind the whole thing, which I don't doubt. I will ask WoldeYesus for further confirmation. My guess is WoldeYesus will say he wouldn't be surprised, but in any case, he died in a car crash in the Sudan, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was Isaias who was responsible for that, one way or another, because his rivals, he was a rival to Isaias. Anyone who's an intellectual, someone who can, outdo a dictator, who can outdo you, someone who can outdo you in their sleep. Individuals like Mr. WoldeYesus Ammar, individuals like Michael Gaber, these kinds of people can outdo you while you're asleep. Of course, you're going to be afraid of such people. But it's okay. We can respond to Mr. Isaias and revolt against him using education, the power of the pen. So, anyway, let us begin. Preface. We'll divide we'll do the preface first, and then in the following episode or discussion, we'll do the introduction. And we may go into part 1 of the book. So let's go into the preface and see what Mr. WoldeYesus has written. Preface. This is an attempt to examine more deeply the complex root causes of the Eritrean liberation struggle and its refugee phenomenon. The study was submitted only 2 weeks before the liberation of Asmara to the Graduate School of Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri, in partial fulfillment of the degree of Master of Arts in International Relations. The rapid developments that had unfolded in Eritrea and its environs since then have not affected any part of the analysis. And despite a previous intention of combining it with other related topics on Eritrea for a different project, I accepted the advice of compatriots and friends to publish it now meaning 1992 or around that time, 1992. To publish it now so that it could serve at least as a reference material on issues which need be attended to seriously at this crucial hour of decision on the fate of Eritrea and its struggling people who have been unjustly subjected to too much suffering for so long. So you see, he was advised by compatriots and friends to publish this book ASAP, as soon as possible, to publish it now, so that it could serve at least as a reference material on issues which need to be attended to seriously at this crucial hour of decision on the fate of Eritrea and its struggling people who have been unjustly subjected to too much suffering for so long. Isn't that what we went through in the last text by Dr. Alam Sagad? We spoke about Eritrea, the plight of Eritreans. We mentioned that. Here we talk about what happened and why. And this is why the whole world should know about this, because what took place was something of a grand phenomenon and a catastrophic story. that took place in Eritrea. So those of you who are non-Eritrean, Eritrea is a country that's found along the Red Sea on the African side, and it borders Sudan, Ethiopia, and Djibouti, and it's across from Saudi Arabia and Yemen. We will learn about this later, I believe. I read this 2 years ago, but reading it again will refresh things that I forgot, and reteach me what I had forgotten or may have missed somehow. So you could see that it was Eritrea was in the state of a kind of emergency at the time. Although a partisan in the conflict for over 30 years, I have tried to the best of my ability to treat the subject with rigorous objectivity. Proceeding on the same academic requirement, I have drawn conclusions which I believe are objective and balanced, albeit sensitive, based on concrete evidences and living realities of the variegated society. This work is, therefore, the original thesis project on the Eritrean liberation struggle and its refugees, with slight editing touches on tense of verbs and a sentence or two on opening chapters for updating purposes. However, an epilogue was deemed necessary to make a quick glimpse into certain essential issues and events of the past, which were not adequately treated in the text. Similarly, the epilogue surveys the political and social implications of the latest developments of the future of Eritrea. Certain words in use in the region, like Ethiopia, Habasha, Tigray, and Tigrayans, are often confusing because of their shifting meanings, depending on the user. An attempt had been made to explain them in footnotes. In particular, the words Kabessa, plateau or highland, that's what Kabessa means, plateau or highland, and Kabessans, highlanders, are extensively used here referring to the mainly Tigrinya-speaking region, and people in Eritrea, to the mainly Tigrinya-speaking region and people in Eritrea because of lack of a better word, and in order to avoid calling them by the generic word Habasha, which is not strictly speaking correct. So similar to Dr. Alam Sagad, he's using the term Kabessa to refer to the Tigrinya speakers of the highlands. This geographical reference to the Eritrean plateau. The Eritrean plateau is southern Eritrea, Saraye, Aklaguzai, Asmara, which is known as the Hamasien, and also Tigray. These are highlands. Tigray, of course, is part of the other side of the Marab, the Marab River, and on the Eritrean side, those are the highlands, the south, and they are highland areas. So this geographical reference to the Eritrean plateau also helps to distinguish the same people from the Tigrayans or Tigrinya speakers in Ethiopia. Furthermore, the adjective Christian had been prefixed whenever applicable to differentiate Kabessans of the dominant Coptic Orthodox culture from the Jabarti and Saho Muslims, most of whom are Kabessans. So the Saho, who are, by the way, border the Irob, who speak the same exact language. I don't know their ethnic relationship, but they speak the same language at least. Irob are in Tigray, Saho are in Eritrea. Saho are mainly Muslim. They're, I believe they're mainly, if not completely Muslims. And the Jabarti are Tigrinya speaking Muslims. Jabarti, we were told, but some of my family members said that they migrated from Tigray to run away from Yohannes during his genocide against Muslims, Yohannes IV. They may agree to that. That may be the part of this. They migrated north, meaning to the Eritrean area. That may be part of the story. Maybe there's more to the story. I'm not sure. I know that there are people known as Jabartis in places like Somalia, maybe other places as well. But these are the Jabarti. So Mr. WoldeYesus tells us that the adjective Christian had been prefixed whenever applicable to differentiate Kabassans of the dominant Coptic Orthodox culture from the Jabarti and Saho Muslims, most of whom are also Kabassans. So they're also Kabassans, most of them. Okay. Yeah, so he will use the term Kabasa, Christian Kabasa, to refer to the Tigrunya, if I'm not mistaken, from the Eritrean side. I don't think he mentions the Tigrayans. He may mention Tigrayans, but since the story, the content is based on Eritrea, it will be focusing on Tigrunyas, with respect to Tigray, of course. A carefully selected material is appended to the study, attempting to show in a nutshell the social and political factors behind the persistently divergent viewpoints in Eritrea. The communal divisions and estimated population figures for 1952, in parentheses, there has not been any population census in Eritrea since 1931. So the communal divisions and estimated population figures for 1952 are indicative of the linguistic and cultural differences in the society that partly gave birth to 15 parties, political parties, in 1951 and to 9 fronts in 1992, including a pan-Afar movement in the region. Views expressed during the consultations of the UN Commissioner for Eritrea in 1951 with Eritrean parties and the interviews conducted with veteran Eritrean fighters 30 years later underline not only enduring commitment to separate Eritrean statehood, but also call attention to the paramount importance of fully accommodating the interests of those concerned social forces in order not to stop with half solutions this time around. The ultimate objective is, therefore, to present some of the bitter truths of the Eritrean reality without glossing them over by falsehoods and wishful rationalizations. Mr. WoldeYesus Ammar is objective in his text. I use this space to note that my modest project would not have been started under the present theme without the encouragement of my thesis advisor, Professor Raymond Smike, and course supervisor, Associate Professor Earl Noelty. I am indebted to both for having advised me to combine the two subjects of liberation struggle and refugeeism in an international relations thesis, which conveniently fitted the Eritrean situation. I also thank the 2 Webster University professors for their suggestion that I could use the analysis presented in my previous seminar papers relevant to this subject. The papers included 1. The Ethio-Eritrean conflict. 1. The Ethio-Eritrean conflict, the papers that he wrote, that Mr. WoldeYesus wrote. 1. The Ethio-Eritrean conflict, what solution? 2. International law and national liberation movements. 3. Lebanization in international relations, case study Eritrea. 4. Superpower rivalry in the Horn of Africa. And 5. Ethnic nationalism in Yugoslavia. What prospects in the 1990s? Or what prospects in the 1990s? Likewise, I am deeply indebted to my devoted wife, Leta'ab, for having lent me her courage to attend study courses at middle age and for typing all the seminar papers which I scribbled, including the thesis. I am also thankful to my daughters, Sophia and Haranat, whose indignation over my scattered papers had been limited to the harmless remark, "Oh, toujours l'Erythrée." I don't know what that means. I'll look it up though. And at last, but not least, I must acknowledge that the work appeared in its present form thanks to the skillful retyping and formatting efforts exerted on it by Miss, I think it's Aida Sarafian of Baghdad, who was a colleague at the United Nations Iraq Relief Coordination Unit in 1991 to 1992, where I have been serving as Program Officer for Information and Research. I am grateful to the invaluable help she offered me by sacrificing many of her long-awaited weekend days. WoldeYesus Ammar, Baghdad, October 1992. So that's the preface. After this, we will be entering the introduction, which discusses what we're going to be talking about. So, we're going to discuss these matters in this text, and we will have an interesting, this will be an interesting journey. This will definitely be an interesting dive into what Eritrea is. We will learn about Eritrea. We will see what makes up Eritrea. What is Eritrea? What is its story? What is its what is Eritrea? What is it? And more than that, why? Why Eritrea? Why did it come into being? And why did it fight? Why were people so why were they so enthusiastic about defending this former Italian colony? What was the cause? We know that they did it, and we learned in the last series, based on the historical orbit of Eritrea's agony, we learned that there was oppression, but what was taking place to cause a group, well, it wasn't a group of people, but groups of people to come together and start and react the way that they did? What happened? And who were those people? And what tribes did they come from? Questions that you want answered will likely be answered in this text. If you're Eritrean, if you're living in the diaspora, if you're Ethiopian, and if you're living in the diaspora, wherever you are, this text is very important. Wherever you are in the world, this text is very important for you to understand, especially if you come from the Horn of Africa, especially if you have origins in Eritrea and Ethiopia. These two places, including Tigray, if you have origins in those places. So if you're from the world, watch this. If you're from the Horn of Africa, watch this. If you have origins in Ethiopia and Eritrea, I emphasize that you watch this, or read it at least. Read the book. You will learn many things, God willing. Until next time, God willing, we'll meet again, and we'll go over the introduction and discuss the matters pertaining to the topic of Eritrea. Be safe, keep safe, be well, and peace be with you to all the good people out there. Thank you for watching.